Good.
Welcome back to our policy sessions for the Board of County Commissioners on May 11th. Commissioner Fisher, you were going to kick it off with another piece of information.
Yes, I wanted to let folks know that the process for the, what was that?
Speak in your microphone.
Can you hear me? Okay. For the local implementation plan is that it goes to Metro staff and they go through this little checklist. And they found a few areas where they are just wanting a little bit more detail and information. It is not anything that's substantively at all different, but I sent it to myself and I'm sorry. Here we go. I just want to make sure I give you the right information. The areas that they wanted a little bit more information, the plan calls for a regional approach, and they wanted a little bit more information on that. Wanted a little bit more information on how we're doing the rent assistance, and more detail on the definitions of best practices.
Great.
So basically what we've been talking about, or what I understand, is there's going to be like 3 addendums that will be added to the plan, and those will all be distributed to us so that we can look at them and review them. But the expectation is May 24th is the date that that plan will be presented to
And I believe there is some behind-the-scenes work going on with that with the tri-chairs, Commissioner Fisher.
That might be separate. That might be the regional planning piece, which there is stuff going on there that I understand, because I just had a talk with Emily today about that. Mm-hmm. But this is our local implementation plan
I understand.
that we approved, that I just want to let folks know that that's where it is in this process.
Okay, I see there's a light on there, but we're not prepared to have a big, long discussion on this today because we have 2 other issues coming up. I see a commissioner in the queue.
Commissioner Savas.
Commissioner Savas, can you please be brief?
I'll just be brief. I would just say that when we approved that, the implementation plan, I made my points and concerns about the lack of detail. And so I appreciate that Metro picked up on some of that. But, the work plan piece, we need to have something in place so we know that when these dollars come, that we've got greater definition and processes in place to make sure that we're responsible for those dollars and they're getting out as responsibly as possible. So I'm looking forward to that, and just want to say that I'm expecting more work and staff work and county commissioner work on this topic.
Thank you very much. Gary, we are getting ready for our next policy session.
Yes, first policy session is Urban Growth Management Agreements and Happy Valley East Urban Growth Management Agreement. We have staff from Transportation and Development to present, Dan Johnson and Martha Fritzie. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, Gary. Chair Smith and members of the commission, we are here to talk about and get some guidance from the board on whether or how to move forward with the execution of the Happy Valley East Urban Growth Management Agreement, or also known as UGMAS. Some of you may not be very familiar with UGMAS, but just to make sure we're clear, we generally have UGMAS with the majority of our cities in Clackamas County. In short, there's simply ways to ensure that we coordinate efficiently and effectively, especially in those areas that are going to be annexed at a future date into a particular city. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Martha Fritzie, who's going to walk through a quick presentation and we'll answer any questions you might have. I also, just for the sake of discussion, we have Jennifer Hughes, our planning director, on Zoom. And we also have Nate Boder from County Council for questions that arise. So with that, Martha.
Hi, thank you. As Dan mentioned, we're here to talk about urban growth management agreements, or UGMAs. Uh-oh. Oh, go ahead to the first slide. Thank you. And so I just want to spend a couple minutes talking about UGMAs in general. As Dan mentioned, we do have UGMAs with nearly all of the 16 cities that are wholly or partially within the county. These types of management agreements are required by state law, and they're necessary for coordinating and the management of areas of mutual interest. And generally, they include planning provisions, so we can coordinate planning and service delivery and urban service delivery, and to provide a smooth transition when lands are annexed into those cities. Each of these agreements is individually negotiated with the city and the county. We could, in theory, have one with more than one city, but we do not. And A lot of the language is fairly standard, but sometimes there are special provisions that are negotiated between the city and county. And most of the existing UGMAs that we have are actually quite old, decades old, as a matter of fact, because there's really no requirement under state law for a specific time frame for updating of these agreements, and it's something that needs to be sort of mutually taken on and agreed to by the city and county. And so far, the majority of our cities, we just have worked okay within these old UGMA agreements, and everything's been just fine. Next slide, please. So typically, these UGMAs talk about planning responsibilities. Generally speaking, the cities are responsible for doing the urban and public facilities planning within these areas of interest. Until an area is annexed into a city, though, the county zoning applies, and all land use applications are run through the county. And then, most importantly, the agreements talk about notification procedures and how the city and county will coordinate. And it talks about what happens when property annexes into the city, what happens to the abutting roads. And there's different types of agreements between the cities and what happens there. And then some of them do have customized components that deal with specific areas. One that comes to mind is, at one point in time, we had some specific agreement about the Cruise Way area with Lake Oswego as that area was being developed, how we were going to coordinate how all of that development happened together. And go on, please. And so specifically, the reason that we are here today is that we have been negotiating with the City of Happy Valley for a new UGMA called the Happy Valley UGMA East. It's important to note as we start talking about the Happy Valley UGMA East, we already have an UGMA with the City of Happy Valley that encompasses the area generally sort of southwest of the city and west over to I-205. That is now what we are calling the Happy Valley UGMA West. This negotiation has nothing to do with that document. Nothing in that document would change. The Happy Valley UGMA East generally deals with lands that are sort of southeast and east of the city currently in the area that is the western portion of what used to be the city of Damascus. And I'll show you a map in just a moment, but it's generally the area that goes out to about 222nd Avenue, southeast of the city, down into the Carver area. Over the last several years, planning staff, engineering staff, and our legal staff have worked cooperatively with the city to draft and redraft and redraft and redraft and negotiate drafts of this document, and it is nearly final at this point. And we decided that it was definitely high time to come talk to you about this because to move this forward, we're going to need both the county commission and the city council to sign off on the agreement. Next slide, please. So just very generally, the latest draft of the Happy Valley UGMA East was included in your packet, but generally it states that typical of all of these agreements that county zoning continues to apply until such time as property is annexed to the city. It talks about specific conditions for transfer of roadways, post-annexation. It talks about the typical notification requirements that the city is required to do to the county and the county to the city. What is interesting and maybe a little unique about this one is it specifically talks about the future urbanization of the lands east of Happy Valley within this area. And it identifies the city as the responsible party for developing the urban plan and the public facilities plan and ultimately urbanizing this area, obviously as property annexes into the city. It talks about specific coordination roles with the county throughout this process. And it also identifies a few things as high priority items to coordinate even more closely between the city and county on, including the Sunrise Corridor, including identifying employment lands, and also potentially opportunities for affordable housing. And so next slide, I'm almost done. Wow, it's a little bit hard to see. This area in yellow is the area that would be subject to this urban growth management agreement. And it goes roughly, that vertical line is 222nd. You can see down below, it goes out a little past that. And then the area down below the city is down into the Carver area. Next slide. I think it's important to be aware that there's actually a portion of this area that the city is actively planning, has gotten grants and has used consultants and has coordinated with the county to develop an urban land use and transportation plan. It's for this area identified here, which generally is about 1/90th, and again, down through the Carver area, about 2,700 acres of this area. This plan is pretty far along. The city, I believe, is about to take it through a public process and adoption process. And as part of that, this urban growth management agreement needs to be in place. And again, that's another reason that we're coming to you today. And then last slide. I just was playing with maps and threw both of these areas up on a map to sort of get a sense for what we're talking about. So the yellow area here is the area included in the Happy Valley UGMA East. The green is the area that is in the currently being planned by the city. It's called the Pleasant Valley North Carver Pleasant Valley North Carver Comprehensive Plan. That's the area that they are actively doing urban planning for. And that is it for my slides. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not it for my slides. I guess I should have looked down. So generally, moving forward, the next steps, what we need to do to execute this UGMA is to finalize the language. As I said, we're very, very close. It will not take much negotiation to finalize the language. Typically, we ask the city to have their decision makers sign the agreement first, and then we bring it to you all at a business meeting for consideration and ultimately for signature. I mean, this is really, it's just an intergovernmental agreement.
And I assume the city of Happy Valley likes this, right?
Who's she pointing at? Oh.
Martha? Dan?
Well, I would assume so. We've gotten this far down the road, and it's gone, they've had their planning and engineering and legal team, and the city manager's been somewhat involved in
Is this on their behest?
Pardon me?
Is this plan on their behest? I mean, we're just not, Clackamas County just isn't doing it because we haven't got anything better to do.
No, it's mutually beneficial, and this has been a discussion that's been underway for quite some time that we needed to bring resolution to get this thing adopted. And so we actually got a hold of the city manager, worked in coordinating with him. He checked in with his city council, and there is support from the city's perspective to move this forward as well.
What about the folks that are in the Damascus area? And is any of this part of the old Damascus city limits? I mean, I saw your map, but it kind of went by fast for me to analyze.
Yes.
Yes, it does. So this is the area. So if you think about Damascus as a whole, there were, and I'm going to split this up on the west and the east side. That west of 222nd area, this covers that area that was formerly Damascus. It does not deal with that area east that was formerly Damascus from 222nd out. That's a discussion that we have got to have with the city, because that annex development of that area is dictated by the necessity, primary necessity for sewer service, which that question has not been answered yet, how that can be provided for that area.
Right, right. Okay, is there any opposition to this from anybody out there, any of the citizens, developers?
Well, not that I'm aware of. I mean, this agreement really just outlines who's doing what. It doesn't say what is going to be done for urban planning. That's a process that Happy Valley has been going through, and it's been a very public process. This is really just an intergovernmental agreement that outlines who's got what responsibility in this area.
And I'd like to build on that. It does not mandate our citizens doing it. It does not mandate that they have to annex at all. All it does is simply say, how do these jurisdictions work together? The decision from any citizen, the decision is the citizen's decision if they choose to annex or not going forward. We do not require that or mandate that at all.
The citizens' decision if they want to annex. Okay. I see, Mark Schul, you have your light on.
Yes, Martha. At what point in this process do the residents of unincorporated Clackamas County get to have a say on this UGMA development?
Well, so typically, with an intergovernmental agreement, it's an agreement between the two governments, and it's not driven by a public process. The adoption would come forth at a business meeting, so I guess at some point, somebody could come in and make a statement or testify for or against it. But, again, it's really just an agreement about whose responsibility it's going to be to plan this area and who does what so we can coordinate. This doesn't change anything about any land uses allowed in the area or anything like that at this point in time.
Doesn't identify any additional restrictions or anything.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from anybody on this. I mean, I know staff says it's no big deal. It's probably going to be a big deal. Go
Yes.
ahead, Mark.
Well, the reason I ask is because some people who live in unincorporated Clackamas County might have some objections to being included inside of city limits, because that might change some of their taxes and et cetera. So I'm just curious, at what point in time do people get a chance to express their concerns, or maybe their appreciation and agreement with the idea?
As we said, it does not dictate or require any individual to annex. So it is their decision on whether or not they would like to be a part of the city or not. And they can make the conscious decision to not go in the city if they're concerned about their tax rates or concerns about the city and what the services that city may be providing.
Okay. I think you've said that a lot, Dan. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, first of all, I want to just say that I am really pleased that the city of Happy Valley is taking the steps that they're taking with the comp plan work and everything else. I'm great to see the development that's occurring out there, and for all the things that Martha cited as far as housing and business and expansion possibilities. I think what's going on there is pretty exciting, so I'm pleased about that. I want to make that perfectly clear so that no one misunderstands my comments here. So I'll just go with the latter part first, because Commissioner Scholl and Commissioner Smith just talked about that, and that is that, the particulars, for example, in Milwaukee, in their urban growth management area, outside of the city, but within their UGMA boundaries, if someone wants to develop their property or hook up the sewer, basically there's a lot of levers that the city can pull to say, well, if you want that to happen, you got to annex to the city. So I don't know if there's a comparable type of an arrangement within that area, but it seems to me that if you were a property owner, you would, I would think be inclined to, because the cost differential in taxes is pretty minimal, if anything, other than the bonds. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I would imagine the financial impacts aren't great. But still, there is a right, so to speak, a right, but a change, the development, that if that development potential looks different and the processes are different, that they ought to be aware, and we ought to be somewhat giving an opportunity for the public to be aware of it, and number one, chime in and have their say on it. But so with that said, the first part I really want to address were the roads. The roads that are county-owned roads. And when we go forward, I'm still wondering why, and includes now all of Sunnyside in this particular proposal, east of, actually all of Sunnyside, because once it crosses 82nd Avenue, it's a different road. It's Harmony. So all of Sunnyside's, I take that back. There's parts of it that are probably not. They're unincorporated. But for most of it that's in the city should be owned by the city. That road ought to be transferred. And I'm just concerned that what the arrangement is, Dan, with new roads and so forth, that if the county was to build them or be part of it, there ought to be the transfer of that liability. It shouldn't be on the unincorporated areas to take care of a road that is virtually almost completely within the boundaries of the city or their UGMA. So can you talk about that a little bit, Dan, as far as the road and also as far as the development changes that would take place if they become in the UGMA?
Yeah, I think I got your question, so if I didn't, we can expand on this a little bit. I want to be clear, and make sure I get this right. Milwaukee's UGMA is a little bit different than this Happy Valley discussion we're having right now. And I say that because those areas in Milwaukee's UGMA already have urban zoning applied. So what that means is that any individual who owns property in that area can make the conscious decision on developing with the county's zoning requirements or annexing to the city and developing under the city's zoning requirements. The only real trigger there or mandate that I'm aware of is if they have to go to the city sewer service. If they're providing the sewer service, then they have to be there. But if there's other sewer provided, they have that choice. This area differs because there is no urban zoning applied yet. That is the work that's going to be underway, that is currently underway through Happy Valley. And so right now, the zones that you see out there are reserve lands, RRF at 5, 5-acre lands, 10-acre lands, 20-acre lands, 80-acre lands, maybe E if you.
It's all rural zoning,
Yeah, it's all
rural
rural zoning.
residential, farm forest.
So that's just how they differ a little bit, Commissioner Savas. Going to the road discussion, Happy Valley has been an active partner with the county on transferring roads and bringing new roads in that would be city standards and being city roadways. There have been discussions around 172nd. There have been discussions around Sunnyside Road. The city has no interest at this point in time to accept those roadways. They made that relatively clear. There's been a history of this discussion, which is mixed to some extent on should we transfer it, should we not transfer it, should we keep these major arterials under county ownership and maintenance responsibility. There has been no clear guidance on that recently, though.
And what we're doing today is not consideration of that.
Pardon me?
What we're doing today does not take into consideration transfer of roads.
Those specific roads, no, but it does talk about a process in which roads can be transferred. and how we
Commissioner
would transfer.
Savas, do you have any further comments?
Well, I do. So Dan, I think, is it fair to say, I just need a clear answer, just yes or no. Is it, to me, it seems from what you said, if I own a 5-acre property in this Happy Valley UGMA East, and I'm not in the city today, or the UGMA, I'm not in the UGMA today, and I become within the boundaries of the UGMA, that my development rights are, if I want to, let's just say it's fallow, it's greenfield, there's nothing on there, and I want to build a home, or I want to build a business, and I'm zoned, I don't have zoning currently, but that my development picture doesn't change.
It does not change until the city itself adopts the comprehensive plan and applicable
Exactly.
land use laws. Yep.
Well,
Exactly.
Oh, I think Martha wants to expand on that.
So does the UGMA is it required the UGMA be established before the comp plan zoning change? I mean, is that normal? Or can it be both ways?
So that's normal, and I just wanted to add on to what Dan had said. Nothing changes for that property owner in the rural residential land if they're included in the UGMA area. Nothing changes for that property owner if the city adopts an urban plan, even that covers their property. When it changes is at the point that they annex into the city. So they're not required to annex, even if they now do have urban services available, if they just want to do whatever it is that they're doing now under their current zoning. This is not requiring anybody to annex unless at some point in time in the future, they want to develop at urban densities and hook up to sewer and water and have urban development.
And let's build on that second question you had, Commissioner Savas. This agreement needs to be in place before the city has the ability to adopt that urban, again, what's the name of it again? The Carver, East Happy Valley.
North Carver, Pleasant Valley.
Pleasant Valley Comprehensive Plan. This agreement has to be in place before they can adopt that and apply those urban comprehensive plan designations.
Okay. Well, so the other thing I want to say is that, the last time the UGMAs were adjusted in the cities around this region that are contiguous to one another, there was, I think, Mayor Byer, Wade Byer was the mayor of Gladstone at the time, and then the incoming mayor and now the current mayor, if I'm not mistaken, said the next time this happens, I want to be part of this process because apparently they have some, they want to see some adjustments on their side a little bit that is now within the Happy Valley UGMA. So what I'm really thinking is that from a process standpoint, I don't want a long drawn out, I don't want to slow anything down. But I think we have a responsibility to make sure that interested parties are aware of what we're doing and they have time to input on that. I think we owe that to everyone.
So in regards to the question or the statement regarding the city of Gladstone, there's no contiguous area between this UGMA and that city. The currently either Happy Valley or areas in that existing UGMA, the West Happy Valley UGMA, are between those two barriers. So I guess the question would be, if there was a point in time that the county and/or the city of Happy Valley looked to renegotiate the Happy Valley West UGMA, that would be the point in time we would be engaging Gladstone to see if there's a discussion around where that boundary might lie.
Well, we're not talking two different UGMAs, we're talking one new UGMA, right?
No, they're two different UGMAs. There's one that's existing. This is just covering the new area to the east.
Okay, so we're gonna have two separate agreements,
Yes.
okay? And we have, again, back to the roads, we have Sunnyside Road and 172nd that are part, at least one, Sunnyside is part of both of those UGMAs. And it just seems that should be, they should be taking that road while it's in good condition.
If that's the direction from the board, we can start having discussions with the city of Happy Valley about the transfer of that road. I think we should probably have a separate policy session around that and a dialogue. But we
Yeah,
can.
the question has to be asked, frankly, I mean, I have no quarrel with my friends on the Happy Valley City Council, have a lot of respect for everyone, glad of what they were doing, but we have to ask the question, why should Clackamas County unincorporated residents pay for the maintenance of Sunnyside Road?
So the UGMA before you today it takes that road transfer into consideration and establishes a process for that, but it does not mandate that.
I get that.
And so-
You explain that. You
Yeah.
explain that.
So we would have-
But
we can
the question remains, at some point, the entire road, a majority, we're just gobbling up more of that. And with all that construction and road wear and construction equipment that's happening out over there, we're picking up that cost.
That is correct.
So if there's a pothole out over there, who responds?
Clackamas County Transportation Maintenance.
There you go.
So are you telling, well, okay.
I think this is outside the purview of this particular discussion. If we want to have road maintenance, I think, Paul, transfer, we need to bring that up at issues because it's a different topic. And you're perfectly free to do that if you want. I'm not,
But Chair, it's actually related to this topic.
I didn't hear that.
It's just part of the language of the agreement. So
Transferring
it's completely relevant.
172nd Avenue is part of this
No,
discussion?
the policy on roads and road transfers is part of this agreement. This is our opportunity.
We're not going to do it today.
That's right.
We are not going to transfer roads today. We have two options before us today that I believe we need to complete this UGMA if at a later date that we can address the road issue. I just think we're not going to be hasty in a decision, in a discussion, when this board does not have the background and necessary information to make that decision. Is there anything else you want to say regarding the UGMA East?
Chair, the only thing I would say is that we need more work on this topic.
Okay,
And I
that's
think
fine.
we ought to be considering all of these things and come back with some suggestions.
Okay. Sonia Fisher, are you up?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Smith. So thank you very much. This is really interesting. I've been looking at the map on our Clackamas County website that goes into a little bit more depth so I can kind of see the lines of this UGMA East. Is that what we call it?
Yes.
The Happy Valley UGMA East. And it is really interesting. I just don't know how this works. So our county goes like this. This is our border. Our boundary of Clackamas County is straight. In some parts of the border, like Cheldolin Road, there's a road that is very clear. There's a boundary. But then there's other areas, as I zoom in, it looks like there isn't a road. The boundaries of Clackamas County just go. And so from that area between up to 222nd, I'm just curious, what happens to those parcels of property that might be, I'm not sure if they're sitting across two counties, but it looks like they might be. So I guess that's my first question. Does that happen? And if so, how does that work?
It does happen from time to time. There are parcels that straddle county lines, and it becomes an interesting coordination effort when when somebody comes in to develop. And we just work with either the city across the county line or the county, depending on where it is, and figure out how to coordinate development of that parcel.
Okay.
I mean, it's really just that simple. It doesn't happen often, even if it's not a road. Usually it's along a property boundary, but there are properties that do cross.
Okay.
So to expand on that, once you're in the county, you're always in the county. But what you're doing is you're layering another piece over that, which is the city. And when they annex into the city, the jurisdictional control to ensure appropriate level development, to allow development rights and opportunities for that property or the entitlement process is transferred to the city. That responsibility is transferred. And if it straddles a piece of property, it's fine. It ends at where that line's at. But you do see some of these that have historically either gone down city roads or down established roadways, or they may go one lot off, or they may go a distance off that roadway to try to allow for development on either side of that roadway. So,
Well, thank you. Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion that we accept option 1 and move forward with this.
Motion's on the table. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
A motion has been made by Commissioner Fisher, second by Commissioner Schull. I see there's a light on. Commissioner Savas, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't think we're thinking this through. You know, on page 3, under financial implications, there's nothing that talks about the implications of keeping these roads and not having a clear, more defined transfer. And I think there's implications to the county. I don't know why you're all rushing to a decision on this.
Dan, what are the implications if we were to take up the road issue? What would that entail? Not today, we have a motion on the table, but for future reference.
as briefly as I can share this with you, it would probably be the fact that you would not look to sign this agreement, which then would prohibit the city from adopting their comprehensive plan. Because in all honesty, I don't believe the city has interest, we've talked to them about that, interest in taking over those roads.
Okay.
So it'd be that trade-off in that discussion. It almost would be trying to force the discussion.
So Happy Valley does have an interest in expanding somewhat. I think they're doing it slowly and methodically. It does not mean, though, that at a later date, Happy Valley might want to take over some of our roads.
That is correct. In fact, we are partnering with Happy Valley right now in developing a joint construction management team because they have funding out in the 172nd area to actually fund that project to expand 172nd. Although it's our road, we're not spending money to do this. They want to spend money to fund that. So they're partnering with us on that. They have also partnered with us on road transfers, other transfers of roads, which they can't come to mind right now. But I know we've done at least a couple of them in the last couple of years.
Okay, so let's maybe just approach it that way in a urging a discussion for the future. I'm not interested in taking on this huge road transfer mandate right now. I think we need to be methodical and take maybe baby steps one at a time. I'm just surprised that we haven't heard from anybody in the Damascus area of the folks who want to form a city again. I'm just waiting for them to show up at the public hearing. Yes, Fritzy.
Not to belabor this, but if this may or may not help, the way that the UGMA deals with roads is that anything that's a minor arterial or lower classification, it does require those be transferred upon annexation of abutting property. What is at issue are the major arterials. And for whatever reason in the past, there's been a hesitancy to just automatically have those transfer. And I think that's the conversation maybe moving forward is the major arterials. Because the
Okay,
rest of the
that's
roadways
upon-
are taken care of.
But you say it's upon annexation. We're not doing annexation today, we're just doing an UGMA, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Who's in the queue?
Commissioner Savas.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces to these agreements and relationships, and the cities have always said, the county should get out of this urban service delivery. And here we are, we're trying to get out of the urban service delivery, and we're getting stuck, I think, or holding on to a liability. Mm-hmm. This is a major arterial, and if this becomes a transit corridor and transit's added, who's going to bear the cost? You know, the county is going to be responsible for, you know, bus cutouts and stations and all these other things. I mean, that's something that is, that's an urban service. And
Well,
I think
Commissioner-
we need to be, I think we need to put our thinking caps on and be strategic on behalf of the people we serve.
Well, Commissioner
This
Savas,
is
you're always
this is
free.
one element that I don't think we're not thinking this through. And the reason you're not hearing from anyone is that we haven't really advertised it.
Oh, I'm sure they'll come. I'm sure they'll come. And Commissioner
process
Savas,
issue.
you're free to vote no on this, of course.
Of course.
Christina, please take the poll.
Okay, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Abstain.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, passes 201. Thank you very much for your presentation today, staff. And Commissioner Savas, I would encourage you, if you want to take up the issue of roads, we add that to issues, and then we can have a policy session where we can take a deep dive and figure out the responsibilities of Happy Valley and Clackamas and county roads. I think that is just a huge, huge lift right now. And we can move forward with it. Gary, what's up next?
Next policy session, Clackamas County Arts Alliance and Regional Arts and Culture Council Program Results and Updates. Samara Phelps, the Executive Director of our Tourism and Cultural Affairs Department, will present, kick off presenting, and Samara, if you would introduce all of our guests, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Gary. Christina, are our virtual guests brought into the room? Carol Tatch.
Yes, I am bringing them in right now.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure they have a chance to
Find them.
get audio connected.
Please go ahead, Samara.
Okay. So today's session, as you know, Clackamas County Tourism and Cultural Affairs acts as the county's liaison to two arts and culture organizations that receive general fund. And today we have the opportunity to hear the impacts of those investments from the Clackamas County Arts Alliance and the Regional Arts and Culture Council. We're joined today by the Executive Director from the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, Diane Alves, and also the Director of Innovative Philanthropy from the Regional Arts and Culture Council, otherwise known as RAC, and that is Carol Tatch. They'll each have an opportunity to present to you today, but they also provided you with written documentation of those impacts and those reports. The April 30th memo from RAC is the one that is being referenced today. And with that, I'd like to invite Diane to present on the arts impacts from the Arts Alliance. And Christina will run the program for you, so you just can ask her to advance the slides. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Smith and Commissioners. I'm Diane Alves, the Executive Director of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. And along with my colleagues, we're here today to update you on the results of your past support and to ask for your continued funding. For the past 25 years, we have worked with you and the county and other county partners focused on our mission of keeping arts and culture central to life in Clackamas County. The purpose of our work is to support development and promote access to arts and culture in every community throughout the county. You can go to the next slide. We do this working by coordinating, collaborating, and advocating with each of the organizations you see here. We have specific partnerships with county tourism, with our individual board members and committees, Clackamas County Cultural Coalition, where we serve as the fiscal agent and provide administrative support. Statewide, we work with the Oregon Cultural Trust and the Oregon Arts Commission, making sure that as many of the funds are directed to Clackamas County as possible. And we have two funded partnerships, one with Young Audiences to provide the Right Brain Initiative, and the other with the Regional Arts and Culture Council to direct grants specifically to artists. Next slide, please. We have two specific programs. The first is the Artist Exhibit Program. And this past year, we continued to service our exhibit partners in as many places around the county as were possible. These spaces are often the first place that citizens are introduced to art. And some of the places we're currently exhibiting, right here in this building as you come in the door on the main floor, as well as the other county services buildings. The Hoodland, the Happy Valley and Sandy Libraries, Beaver Creek and Sunnyside Health Centers, Providence, Milwaukee, and Willamette Falls, as well as the City Hall of Oregon City. Next slide. Oh, that's the numbers of the slide I just said. Sorry. Okay, you can go to the next one. There we go. Our second program is Youth Arts for Change. And our current partners this last year struggled early with COVID restrictions, but we created new opportunities through virtual learning and offered them virtual classes and distributed individual art supply kits to each student so they could continue to learn at home. Each class was specifically created to meet the needs of each individual partner. And our current partners include Clackamas County Juvenile Justice, Parrot Creek Child and Family Services, and the Todos Juntos programs in Canby and now expanding to Sandy schools. We provide all the art supplies as well as the instruction needed for students for each class, free of charge, so the students can continue to be creative long after the classes have ended. Our other COVID response you'll see on the slide is we procured 10 virtual classes created by individual artists and local artists. These classes were free to the community and included origami, watercolor, felting, and other arts, and provided opportunities for all residents of Clackamas County to access art during a time when in-person art classes were not available. We were able to support the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition so they could administer direct grants to artists of over $38,000, and we proudly supported the distribution of over $2 million in grants from the coronavirus relief funds that went directly to Clackamas and Washington County artists and arts and culture organizations. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. With our budget of just over $323,000 of contributed revenue and public investment, the Arts Alliance achieved a wide variety of arts and culture activities and enhancements, as well as pass-through support to young audiences and the Regional Arts and Culture Council. Next slide. We are the hub of arts and culture in the county, and there is a clear and real need for supporting the community arts councils, artists, and governmental agencies. We feel this need. We are the go-to arts organization for most arts and culture efforts. There is no other resource often for them to turn to when needing this type of support. Just two recent examples of when Oregon City Public Works Department wanted input on the new banner poles for Malala Avenue, and we have helped them find artists to be representatives on their art selection committee. Sue Hildig from Governor Affairs reached out regarding a COVID memorial to be displayed in one of the county buildings, and we are working with them as well as a local artist to make that project happen. As we return to in-person events, we look forward to coordinating with all the arts and culture artists, groups, and councils, as well as tourism, to amplify the voice around the county and make sure the audiences know and we encourage them to come and support the arts in our county. Next slide. Our strategic direction for the next year is that we will complete our 22-23 direction planning document with our new committees and board members from around the county, creating a stronger and more diverse organization. We'll continue diversification of our funding strategies to be a stronger partner with tourism and the county, and leveraging more of the funding with our partners. We'll collaborate with Clackamas County, community arts councils, and artists on community art projects, serving as the voice for arts and culture and supporting all efforts in every area of the county. We have directed most of our work recently towards our partnerships. We partner with young audiences for the Right Brain Initiative to grow the number of school districts, teachers, and students K-8 supported by the Right Brain Initiative. The Arts Alliance will garner support with this partner from national, state, and local funding agencies to expand this arts integrated residency program to as many school districts and classrooms as possible. We'll explore a deeper collaboration with Tualatin Valley Creates, our sister organization in Washington County, to provide shared educational and professional development opportunities for individual artists in both Washington and Clackamas counties. By combining these efforts, we will provide educational opportunities and will leverage more of those opportunities for each artist. We'll continue collaborating with Regional Arts and Culture Council to provide funds directly to artists and arts organizations with grants, emergency support, and general operating support. This is a function that the Arts Alliance does not currently provide. We hope that you see that Clackamas County Arts Alliance is a good value for your support. We understand that pandemic disaster recovery is going to be a huge need, and we want to help citizens and students use arts and culture as a vehicle to process trauma and to increase our county's vibrancy and resilience. Commissioners, I'm asking for two things today. One is that we're advocating for continued funding for young audiences, and specifically the Right Brain Initiative. In the past, Commissioners, you have generously funded the Right Brain Initiative, and last year you chose to do that through the Arts Alliance. They are an important partner in serving school-age children in the county with arts, creativity, innovation, and whole brain thinking. This past year, they served 22 schools in the North Clackamas and Oregon Trail school districts. You can find their full report as part of our impact report that you all have. And they are hoping to expand to even more districts as the funding allows. Each year, Right Brain matches your investment 3-to-1 with foundation, business, and individual support. I hope you'll see that the Clackamas County Arts Alliance is a good investment and partner with us throughout the county. We are focused on building our capacity so we're even more robust organization when we are seen as a leader, and will continue to advocate for more funds to be distributed to the county from state and federal opportunities. We hope you'll continue our funding as we move forward. Thank you, Chair Smith and Commissioners, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I know you asked, made an ask in front of us today, but I understand our presentation is just informational,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, we'll keep it at that.
That's fine.
I do have some questions. On the Right Brain Initiative, how are you able to do that when schools are closed?
The Right Brain has been working with the schools that were, once they opened up part-time for sure, and then they were able to do some things online, provide some opportunities online.
Yeah, so you've been inhibited, obviously, from that.
Right.
On the RAC, I noticed that some funding goes to Washington and Multnomah County, correct?
So RAC is on the line virtually to present
You know, I'm
specifically to the
really
program.
having trouble hearing you, Samara. Could you speak directly? Thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
this goes up for you, so it's more, and you can slide it closer. There you go. Thank you.
Yep. Is that better for you, Chair?
Yes, it is.
Great. Thank you for that. RAC is on the line virtually to speak to their program as well. So RAC is here to present next, if you have RAC-specific questions.
What, Mark?
They're in the room today?
Yeah,
Okay,
They're on the phone.
they're on the phone.
okay.
Well, my question is, why is Clackamas County money going to two other counties?
And that's what I would like Carol to be able to answer for you.
Carol? And please state your name and what your organization is.
Excellent. My name is Carol Tatch, and I'm the Director of Philanthropic Innovation at the Regional Arts and Culture Council. In answer to your question, Samara, should we go through the presentation, or is this?
No, I'm not. I just want the answer to my question. I don't, yeah, I really want to get down to the nuts and bolts here.
Certainly. Funds that come from Clackamas County are not shared with Washington and Multnomah County.
All right.
Excuse me?
That was not my understanding.
Oh, okay. All right.
That was not my understanding, but maybe I need to be corrected on that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so, where are you located?
RAC is located in Portland, Oregon. So we're downtown Portland.
Thank you. Where is Clackamas County Arts Alliance located?
We are located here in Clackamas County, but we are currently all working from home, so we're all working from our home spaces
Have you
here.
ever had office space?
A while ago, several years ago, we actually started out with the county, as part of the county with office space there.
Under the
Yep.
tourism, but you,
Yep, yep.
so how long have you not had office space?
Anybody know historically how long that's been?
Yeah, so they were co-located with us at the Blankenship location, but so that would have been a year ago.
So, but before that, where were they?
Before that, they were working remotely. Their files, their access to meeting space was through the tourism offices. So they had access to the county buildings through tourism for meeting space and that type of thing, but we're working from their home offices.
Okay, so they really never have had offices that they've had to pay for, correct?
Yes, that is my
That's right.
understanding.
Besides the Clackamas County funds of $250,000, where else do you get your funds?
We write grants to foundations around the state, and then we also have individual supporters.
Yeah, and I was hoping, I've been asking for this information for quite a long time, and I see it's not in this presentation. I was hoping for a more specific budget to look at where your other funds are coming from.
I can provide that for you, Chair.
I thought that request had been made.
I can give you the direct individual
It would be
amounts where
nice
the
to
gifts
have it
come
way
from.
before budget time.
Sure.
Which, we're running out of time now. That's one of the reasons why we had this meeting today, is to look at the budget.
We will get that material to you.
I see your lights on.
Commissioner Fisher has her
Commissioner
minutes.
Fisher.
Thank you. So I'm looking at slide 9. I don't know if we can put that up.
Did you say 9?
Yeah.
I'm
I
going
would-
there. Hang on.
I can bring
And
that up
I
as well.
apologize if I just didn't catch it, but could you just explain a little bit more about, wait, no, that's not it.
This one?
On mine, it says 9. We'll just go through them and I'll say, stop. No, it is the one, it's on page 9 of 70.
This one?
Okay, so could you just tell me a little bit more? I was really interested in the COVID dollars. I'm not sure,
Right?
like, if you could just tell me a little bit more.
Sure. So obviously, the COVID response dollars we created, we reached out to local artists and asked them to create classes. We felt like we should pay for artists' work, so we only had enough money in our budget for 10 of those classes. And so we procured those. They created them. We put them online on our webpage, and then we advertised them out so people could access them. The over $2 million of COVID coronavirus relief funds came through the state, the Cultural Coalition, and because we serve as fiscal agent as well as administrative support, we were able to make sure that those funds got back out to Clackamas County. And then there was an issue with Washington County in getting those funds out, and we were asked if we would also serve as fiscal agent for those groups, so those groups could get coronavirus funding also. And we did that. So over 59 organizations and arts individuals got that, between the two counties, got that $2.2 million.
And what was the criteria to distribute those dollars?
The criteria for the artists to apply and arts organizations to apply, and then they went through this screening about did they qualify and what were the funds used for, and then only about a handful of ones did not qualify, and then all the others received the dollars. And those dollars were split by their ask. And as you all know, during those times, not everyone got the full amounts, but they got as much as they could be divided between those funds.
Okay, so I'm interested in what types of things were funded.
Everything from, helping theaters with, some of their closures, helping direct artists with things, arts councils where, we had an art show, and that's not going to happen. It was anything that was affected by the pandemic, and to help them both with general fund dollars as well as some specific things. It was keeping artists, keeping people employed and helping with that, and just helping with some of the closures and things like that. So it was a little bit of everything, actually. Anything related directly to pandemic relief, so.
Okay.
And Diane, are you able to provide a list of the Clackamas County entities that were
Oh,
awarded?
absolutely, yeah.
So we can follow up with that.
Do you want me to go ahead and put that in with the budget?
Yeah, I'm just interested in what was supported through those dollars. Would be good to know
Okay.
what the criteria was, what the process was to distribute the dollars. Was there a committee? Did you get a fiscal agent fee? I didn't see that in the budget to help fund your
We did get a
organization.
fiscal agent fee. One of the other things we asked for was we knew that this large amount was going to trigger for us, a small organization, a federal audit. So we asked for a little bit of extra dollars in order to cover our costs to do that, because federal audits are really expensive. So we asked for some money for that too and received that. And that falls on our expenses. You'll see it under the advocacy line. And so part of it is that.
Okay. I mean, I think overall, kind of the thing that I would like to know, because COVID has affected so many industries, and of course it has affected the arts with theaters and venues not being able to be utilized. But I'm interested as a commission and commissioners to look at the big picture of how are we going to be recovering? What is our goal in getting through this, and what do we need to meet it? There have been, I know that bowling alleys aren't considered arts and culture, but it's still community, and like they've closed. Like, what's happened?
Right.
Have we done an assessment of our arts organization, our artists, and how have they been affected by the pandemic, and what do we need to have the vitality of arts in our community so that it doesn't only help our residents recover, but also draws people to our community for economic generation?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are working with the state organizations to start to ask and work with each other to figure some of that out, because it has been pretty high. And we hear about the larger organizations, but there's lots of smaller organizations and arts groups that have really been struggling too. So I'll absolutely get you that list. We'll try to send that over by tomorrow. How's that?
And I
when
do
you
believe-
send your budget, just send over all the organizations that benefit from your
Okay.
grants and where the money comes from, and that's what we were supposed to do
Okay.
today.
And we will follow, we'll make sure you get that. We have RAC on the line still, out of respect for our guests. That's a separate funding organization, so I think it would benefit.
Do we fund this particular group online?
Correct.
How much?
They got 62,000 last year.
Okay, can go ahead with that, please. Cynthia, correct?
Carol.
Carol, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you. Again, my name is Carol Tatch. I'm the Director of Philanthropic Innovation at the Regional Arts and Culture Council. I am also a former Clackamas County resident, so it's wonderful to be online virtually today. Could you please advance the slide? RAC is an independent nonprofit 501c3 organization, and our partnership actually started many years ago. It all starts with an IGA, but I'm getting ahead of the presentation, so I'll just wait. What we do is we connect artists and creatives to opportunities and access. We advocate, we fund, we listen, we learn, and we lean in and lean forward to leverage and invest private and public dollars. Next slide, please. Clackamas County receives 25% of RAC's area of support. There's an additional 25% that goes out to Washington County, and then about 50% of our funding is spread throughout Multnomah County. In 2020, we responded to many increased requests for grants and technical support for artists throughout Clackamas County. Some of this would be because of COVID coming in, and then some of it's just because of a thriving artist and creative community that lives in the Clackamas County borders. Next slide, please. Again, it began with an IGA. And that we have an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland, Metro, Washington County, and Multnomah County. Clackamas County came in in 2000 to join that partnership, which allowed us and engaged us and in that partnership with us, gave us the opportunity to really start to look at the art landscape in this region and pull together the opportunities for supporting artists and creatives. Next slide, please. The next two slides are just highlighting two of the recipients of our grants from 2020. Hopefully you are aware of them since they happened in your space, but if not, I encourage you to go online. We had some wonderful awards going out across the board to many different artists. For RAC support, it is not only through grants, it is also through general operational, and within those grants, it's general operational support, professional development, project grants. With the coming of COVID, we had a number of new programs that we launched in order to make sure artists and creatives were supported throughout the region. Next slide, please. And this is our second highlight, Gabriel Espinoza. Please, again, if you aren't aware of this project, take the opportunity to look more into it. Next slide, please. This slide is just specifically to give you information about the Clackamas County's economic impact with regards to arts and culture. It's a very thriving location for arts and culture to happen, and it feeds into the overall prosperity for the state of Oregon in this particular regard. Next slide. How we get our funding. So some information about RAC itself and this whole process. So we have funding that comes in through many different opportunities. One is through federal funding. We do receive National Endowment for the Art funding. We have corporations and foundations that support our work. We also receive individual contributions that include workplace giving dollars through our Arts Impact Fund program. And those dollars that come in through workplace giving for specific Clackamas County-based arts and culture organizations, 100% goes back into the communities. And we also have earned revenue income spaces where we hold classes and we offer opportunities for folks to have professional development and to get that professional development through RAC. It comes to RAC and then RAC sends that money back out in the community. We also receive funding from Clackamas County to support and leverage the work that we do. And that's why the arrows have that circular aspect. It's a flow that keeps the arts and culture thriving in Clackamas County and throughout the region. Next slide, please. This is just a deeper look into where the funding is coming from and how it moves through this region. There are 45 cultural coalitions across the state. RAC works with the Oregon Arts Commission and the Oregon Cultural Trust. We are ourselves a fiscal sponsor for the Multnomah County Cultural Coalition. And during with regards to your earlier conversation with Diane around the funding that came in, we were able to do the funding allocations for Multnomah County Cultural Coalition, as well as the COVID funding that we received directly to distribute back out into the community. Next slide, please. This is a deeper look at how our funds have come back into the community, into Clackamas County, how we've leveraged those funds and the total allocations that have gone out to Clackamas County since 2015. We see the investments and we see them as investments from Clackamas County as a way to give you a higher return on the investment, up to almost 300% of the funds that we receive. And services and dollars and advocacy go right back out into your community. The next slide, please. We have enjoyed the opportunity to work with organizations within Clackamas County and then also understand our position as a leader in this space to advocate for additional funding coming into your spaces. And we ask for that opportunity, which you'll see in our memo. One of the best partnerships we have is we have a liaison on our board who is specifically allocated to Clackamas County. It is Octaviano Mercias Cuevas, and he lives in Milwaukee. And we look at this as an opportunity, these spring budget talks, to remind you that you have a space to have a voice on our board of directors, and to invite additional voices to come, should you be aware of anyone who wants to serve. That is how we're able to make sure that we can keep issues and concerns and opportunities that are in Clackamas County relevant in the spaces that we're in. Thank you very much. I would enjoy any questions that you may have, and there's lots of material has been provided. Any questions that you have, I look forward to them.
Thank you, Carol. Your presentation is very good.
Thank you.
Any questions for Carol regarding the RAC or any comments? Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, ma'am. On one of your slides, you said you provided grants and technical support to artists in Clackamas County. What is technical support?
Okay, so that could run the gamut from capacity building. So we have classes around accounting, nonprofit accounting, individual artist accounting, opportunities for artists to learn how to do their work more not so much creatively, but to understand the value in attaching dollars to the work that they do. And for a lot of our organizations where we're doing the general operations support, we're also they're looking at, we need a development director so that we can raise more money. We need to know, again, those nonprofit accounting principles. We need to know, how do we properly go out into the community and solicit for funds and make sure that we're doing it in a true and proper way. So it really runs that whole gamut of what is technical to running the operation of being a creative.
Okay, thank you.
That's interesting. Christine, I see a light on.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand
Commissioner
raised.
Fisher?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It always amazes me how you invest some dollars and it magnifies and many more dollars are created. But I'm curious on, I don't know what slide number it was, but it had the years, it had what the Clackamas County investment has been, and then it talks about how many more resources are generated. And it says that those resources come from public and private investments. Can you give me a little bit, is that Oregon Cultural Trust dollars, federal dollars? Can you give me an idea of where those funds are coming from?
Yep. Quite a bit of it comes from RAC's own resources. So some of it is fundraised for, so it comes in as contributory income. We also leverage dollars that we may get, such as from the NEA, back out into the community, depending on where it's needed. How those funds are allocated specifically around grants is this wonderful little process that our wonderful grants director pulls together. But so it by saying public and private, it's primarily to say that as those are the primary sources of our income, those are what make up this reinvestment portfolio. So some of it's individual giving, some of it's RAC's own money funds that it has in order to, and has allotted and allocated to go back out into the community. And again, these are spread across all of the counties that are represented by the organization, all the counties in Metro that are represented by the organization.
Okay, and is the Oregon Cultural Trust part of the dollars that you distribute?
We do not, I'm gonna check real quick to make sure what's up here. Our trust dollars, so the funds we get through the Oregon Cultural Trust, especially the ones, like we have a couple of, I think we have a capacity building one that's live right now. Those funds are redistributed back out by the folks who engage with us in the capacity building program. So if folks are receiving grants from those programs, they're being supported by OCT dollars that come to RAC for that purpose.
And thank you. I just was curious if you were the fiscal for those dollars. I'm curious what investments Multnomah and Washington County make and what their return on investment is for the other two counties.
Oh, all right. I do not have those up, but I can certainly create a response to you. I can submit that to Samara. And I do want to clarify one item. So with regards to funds that come in from the Oregon Cultural Trust for the cultural, for the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition, those funds are distributed out of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. Those are not RAC dollars.
Yeah, Carol, our folks in here in the room wrote down that request, so they know to give that to us.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, you guys can coordinate on that and just run it through them.
So Clackamas and Washington County will be coming your way. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I think you know the information that we need from you, and try to get it back as soon as you can, please.
Yep, we will do
Gary,
that.
any more comments on this?
No, so today was just an informational update, but when you see your proposed budget, then that's a chance where you can ask further questions about these funding requests.
Yeah, I would just like to get it before the budget if we could. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Thank you for preparing the presentation. Thank you, Carol Tack, for being online and doing this today. Do I see a light on?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you, Chair Smith. So I know this is not a budget hearing, but I'm just interested if there's been any talk internally or with the advocacy groups about looking at leveraging lottery dollars and lottery dollars, because arts is an economic generator, and or tourism dollars, if we could. What would be the criteria to utilize those dollars in lieu of general fund to fund the Clackamas County Arts Alliance?
I think you and I need a conversation about that. I'd like to have a conversation about that. Because I think when you talk about leveraging tourism dollars from the state or the county, is that what you're thinking, Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, I mean, I think that arts,
Well,
as
the-
is heritage, is.
This group gets tourism dollars, doesn't it, Gary, or no?
No.
Okay.
The transient, well, just quick, this is a longer conversation, but the 1-minute answer is, and Samara, correct me, the transient room tax cannot be used for ongoing operations for any organization. It can be special one-time funding. And lottery dollars is an allowable expense, but you've already earmarked those funds, commissioners, for prior initiatives this board has made. So if
Okay.
you want to tell me to undo those prior initiatives, we can look at funding through that source.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments?
No.
Thank you for coming in today. We appreciate it very much. Gary, what's up next?
That is your final policy session, but you had a cancellation, so you are done for today, unless you have any other business.
Thank you very much, commissioners. We'll see you next time.
Same time, same station.
Same bat time? Same-